For Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think. If you followed these videos, which you should be, or you've read my blog, which you should have, then you know I'm quite the Raider fan. I've been a Raider fan for quite a number of years. And people have asked me what I thought of the Jon Gruden situation. Well, I typically don't like to give an opinion or express views on things when the emotions are at their highest, because usually when your emotions are at their highest, you're not under emotional control, and people will say things that they don't mean without thinking. And it's ironic that I say that because that is essentially what Jon Gruden said that he did. He was emotional and he said things without thinking. But that would be fine if you'd done it one time. If you were angry and wrote an angry email and then you hit send before you proofread it, then yeah, you would have said something without thinking. But the situation that Jon Gruden finds himself in is one such that he wrote a number of very toxic emails back and forth to people who were in his inner circle over the course of something like 7 years. And these were people who he was friends with, people like Bruce Allen, people like the founder of Hooters and different people like that. He wrote emails back and forth where he talked bad about ethnic groups, women, gays, the commissioner's programs and policies and plans for concussion protocols, and pretty much anything you could think of. If you're talking about blasting or talking bad about a protected class, Jon Gruden talked bad and blasted pretty much every protected class. So people asked me what I thought. And what I thought was I would give him the benefit of the doubt with the DeMar Smith thing, because maybe, as he said, he used a phrase he used all the time, and he did not realize that it was racist. But when you use some of the language that he used, and I won't go into it here because I don't want to offend anybody, when you use some of the language that he used in the emails where he was talking about Michael Sam, or he was talking about female referees, or he was talking about the commissioner, or you pass along naked pictures of cheerleaders, where he got naked pictures of cheerleaders, I will never know, but where you pass along naked pictures of cheerleaders back and forth, then you go from doing a bad thing to being a bad person. And that's where Jon Gruden finds himself today, being labeled and thought of as a bad person. So my thoughts on Jon Gruden is simply that. He is not the best person. So what do I think should happen or should have happened? What I think should have happened, happened. He should no longer be allowed to work in the NFL if he's got no respect for the NFL commissioner. He should no longer be allowed to work in the NFL if he's got no respect for the NFL commissioner's policies, or if he's got no respect for any other employees of the NFL. I mean, if you worked at McDonald's and you hated your manager to the point where you called your manager all kinds of names, publicly or privately or what have you, then you don't need to be there, because the environment is not only toxic for the manager, it's toxic for you. If you're working someplace and you hate the people you work with, you should not be there. You should be someplace else. So if Jon Gruden didn't like the commissioner, if he didn't like what the commissioner stood for, if he didn't like how the commissioner operated, he should have found himself a job in another industry. Become a college coach. Stay at ESPN. Whatever it is. Because if in 2012 you don't like the commissioner, why in 2019 or 2017 do you come back to the league? Same commissioner 5 years later. Why come back to the league if you don't like the commissioner? Why go back to McDonald's if you've already expressed that you hated the boss? That means that either Jon Gruden thought he was above the law, or he's one of the stupidest people on the planet. I don't know which. I'm not here to judge. I don't know the man. I've never met him. But just in hindsight, just Monday morning quarterbacking this thing, just taking the facts and drawing a conclusion, Jon Gruden is not a very bright guy. If you go to McDonald's, work at McDonald's, hate your boss, quit your job, or get fired, then a few years later, the boss is still there, but you go back and say, you know what, I want to work here again. Then you're not very bright, because why would you go back someplace that was toxic in the first place? So my thoughts on the Jon Gruden situation is this. As a Raider fan, I'm not really sorry to see him go, simply because I didn't like the way the Raiders played this year. Not scoring a touchdown on their first drive or in the first quarter for 5 straight games, that's not what champions do. Scripting 20 plays to begin the game and running those plays, whether they're working or not, that's not what champions do. It's amazing, it's miraculous that Derek Carr, after 5 games, still leads the league in passing yards, considering that he doesn't get any passing yards in the first quarter of games. But as a fan of the team, I'm glad to see him go. As a fan of the NFL, I'm glad to see him go. My concern now is what becomes of the Raiders going forward with their new coach in their new situation. What becomes of them? That's a different issue. That's a different conversation. But as far as Jon Gruden goes, my thought is, if you didn't like the boss when you were there the first time, why come back? And if you so dislike the boss, why even go work there? Why not go work someplace else? If you chose to work there, and people will say, oh, well, you're not going to make the money you made in the NFL in college. That's wrong. Just ask Nick Saban. But if you chose to go back, you need to understand that there are rules in place and there are people you're going to have to work with that you may or may not like. And sure, there are going to be people who say he shouldn't be judged on his past. He should be judged on what he does today. Absolutely. But if your past affects your current, then that's something that can't be ignored. If John Cena, and for those of you who are wrestling fans, you'll know who John Cena is. If John Cena is wrestling today for WWE, but 10 years ago he said in a tweet or in an email or in a text, I really don't like wrestling black guys because I don't like the way they smell, then that affects me in being able to enjoy John Cena, because I know that whenever he gets in the ring, he's either not going to want to get into the ring with any black wrestlers, or he's going to get in the ring with black wrestlers and mistreat them because he doesn't want to be there. So it does affect the product. If you don't like the commissioner or his rules or his policies, that affects the product, because it affects how you prepare to work, knowing that you are against something that you have to be in favor of, or at least agreeable to. So yeah, Jon Gruden is no longer the coach of the Raiders. They have a new interim coach. They'll find a new permanent coach at some point, and we'll see where it goes. But as far as right now today, I'm not really sorry to see him go, because at some point everybody knows somebody in one of those protected classes. If you don't know any African American people, if you don't know any gay or lesbian people, if you don't know the commissioner of the NFL, everybody knows a woman who's trying to better herself. So at some point, Jon Gruden defended somebody who is like somebody that's close to you. And that's not a good thing. Nobody can be agreeable to that. Remember to like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. And follow me on Facebook at Eric J on Sports 1 and on Instagram and Twitter at Eric J on Sports. For Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think.